Another installment of Martial Law, this program brought to you for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law constantly changes. The information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts. Different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of that, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. Maybe a guy like Marshall Chriswell. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, Todd?
Wonderful. Good to have you with us here on this beautiful day.
Nice to be here.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about something that I don't think we've really tackled this subject before, so let's spend some time on it. Consumers go into stores all the time, and they might not really trust that what they're buying is what they're actually paying for, or something along those lines. There are laws that protect consumers. I guess that's what I'm getting at. And Pennsylvania has its own set of laws. Is that correct?
That's right. Pennsylvania actually has a very strong consumer protection law. It's called the Unfair Trade Practices and Consumer Protection Law. It's a long name, so we have an almost equally cumbersome acronym we use. It's the UTPCPL. And it is a very broad and very powerful consumer protection law. That is, there are cases filed under this law every single day in the Commonwealth.
So what is this law protecting us from?
Okay, so you mentioned that consumers go into stores and buy things and may not get what they're paying for. Well, consumers also go online and buy things. They purchase homes. They engage professionals for services such as financial planning and legal services and real estate services and all kinds of different things. Every consumer transaction in Pennsylvania is covered by this law. Wow. And even some things that occur out of Pennsylvania are covered by this law. So what it does is if you feel that you have been the victim of unfair trade practice or a deceptive practice by a person selling you something or a company, a business entity selling you something, you can file, and this will create civil liability for that company. And it can be brought, a case under this statute can be brought by any consumer dealing with a Pennsylvania person or entity. So unlike a lot of other laws, under this statute, someone that is not a Pennsylvania resident, that maybe has never been to Pennsylvania, and has purchased something from a Pennsylvania company and has been wronged, they can sue in Pennsylvania court under this statute. So that creates a very broad scope of liability for any business or person dealing with consumer transactions. So if you're selling things online and you are advertising them in a way that is deceptive, or you're pulling some sort of a bait and switch, you could end up with a class action lawsuit against you from people all over the country. So it's a really broad and really powerful law.
I'm guessing that because of online sales now and the fact that you're buying from somebody who's most likely not even in Pennsylvania when you consider the scope of the online retailers, that this law has really, really had to be strengthened or at least has new applications that people probably didn't even consider when the law was first written.
That's absolutely right. The law, as I keep saying, broad, and it's very broad. If you read this statute, it goes through. It has a section where it goes through a litany of 21 different deceptive practices that a business may engage in that falls under the ambit of this law. For example, passing off goods as though they were as those of another, meaning you're selling something and you say, well, this toy is made by Mattel, and really it's not. It was made by some much lower quality manufacturer, or I said bait and switch. deceptive advertising, failing to comply with a warranty, engaging in a pyramid scheme, passing something off as misrepresenting the geographic origin of a product. So if you say something's made in the USA, but actually most of it's made in China, that's a violation. So there are all these very specific things. And then also there is the most litigated section, which is the catch-all provision, which basically says, okay, you've got these 21 specific things that businesses aren't allowed to do. The catch-all provision says also they're not allowed to do anything else that would be considered deceptive. Okay,
just cover the bases there.
Yeah, so you can imagine. I mean, the amount of litigation that generates, and it really does cover, all manner of businesses. So, as I said, any types of any goods or services that are being sold are subject to the law. And a couple of other things really give this law a whole lot of teeth. One is that if the violation is very serious violations are also referred to the Pennsylvania Attorney General by statute, are referred to the Pennsylvania Attorney General for investigation and potential civil liability through the Commonwealth. So that's important to know. But also, and maybe the biggest driving force behind the litigation under this statute is that if an individual or business is found to be liable under this statute, they are responsible to pay, at the discretion of the judge, responsible to pay the other side's attorney's fees as well as triple damages. So if you sold somebody a used car, you represented to them either verbally or in writing that, hey, this car's in great condition. It's I never had any problems with it, and the person buys it, and 2 days later it breaks down, and through the course of litigation they find out, okay, yeah, you were deceptive there. You knew that the engine was going bad and had been making a knocking sound for 2 months before you sold me the car. And I'm out $10,000. Well, all of a sudden that $10,000 under this statute can become $30,000 plus attorney's fees.
One of the things that you mentioned a while back was that if people from other states can sue Pennsylvania, people under the provisions of this law. If I'm from Pennsylvania and I'm buying from a company in some other state, Arizona is the big state that people think of most of all, must I file my litigation in Pennsylvania, or must I file it there where the company is located?
So generally, that company, and it depends on that company's presence here in Pennsylvania, and that gets into a very, very complicated legal analysis. Now, if the Arizona company has a branch office here in Pennsylvania, and that's where you purchased this item, okay, there's clearly liability under, or you can clearly file under this statute. But for a company that is wholly located in Arizona and maybe doesn't have a lot of business contact with Pennsylvania, you may have to look to an Arizona consumer protection law for that.
Well, we've been talking mostly about online applications, but obviously there's a local application or the law wouldn't even exist. So let's talk more on a local angle or a Pennsylvania angle. And some of the deceptive practices, of course, are while they're reprehensible, they are things that obviously need to be brought before a court, or at least taken to an attorney to determine what the next course of action is. So what do you recommend people do? Well,
I think number one, from a business owner's perspective, or someone who is selling something or providing a service, if you have questions at all about the way that you're advertising something, err on the side of caution. Talk to an attorney about whether this might be deceptive. There is a fine line between, what some cases have called puffery, right? The general tendency to exaggerate in advertising. This is the greatest. This is the best. It's the biggest. So there's a fine line between that and being deceptive, and you want to be on the right side of that line. So, from a business owner's perspective, making sure that you have taken some preventative measures is important. And of course, if you're sued under this law, you've got to get representation right away.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And of course, from the consumer angle, the same thing. So you need to take it to an attorney. Don't try to figure this stuff out on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like anything else. I mean, like I said, this particular law has very weighty consequences on both sides. You've got a consumer that's potentially, is out quite a bit of money for, with respect to a transaction, and you've got a business owner who has a lot to lose, both monetarily and reputationally. So it's definitely something that you want to take very seriously.
There's a lot at stake. An attorney can help you figure it all out. Marshall, can we apply this to politics? And I'm just kidding. I mean, we get all kinds of false advertising in politics, don't we?
You do, and unfortunately, that's not a consumer transaction. I think it should be.
That's a whole new can of worms. Marshall Chriswell, if somebody wants to talk to you about consumer protection laws, what do they need to do?
You can give me a call at 724-465-5826. Stop and see us in the R&P Cole building here on Church Street in Indiana, or go online to www.westernpalawyer.com.
Beautiful. Thanks, Marshall. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks, Todd. Have a good week.
You too.
Thanks, Todd. Have a good week.
You too.